With Sonic Colors Ultimate releasing soon, at the time of me writing the script at least, it made me think about the fun times I had with Sonic Colors DS on my old blue 3DS 6 years ago when I was in kindergarten. And no, I can't show the DS because somebody sat on it and broke it. Yeah, RP blue 3DS. So yeah, like I said, SC Ultimate soon releases, and maybe go back and think about Sonic Colors DS. So I decided to play it on an emulator, and I ended up getting every Emerald S ranks on every boss, and of course beating the game. And a bit before I had beat Sonic Colors DS, I had ordered Sonic Colors on the Wii. And well, it's now here. So then I decided it's been a while since I've done a versus video, so here's the next versus video. Sonic Colors DS versus Wii, or DS versus Ultimate, I guess, but I'm basing this off of the Wii version. So, I guess you could say Wii, I don't know. So let's begin. The first topic I'll have is cutscenes or story and different wording, but whatever. I'm not going to be like, okay, so the Wii's more powerful than the DS, so the cutscenes are better. Instead, I want to base it off of how well the system's cutscenes could be compared to how they really are. So let's start with the DS version. The DS version's got little pictures and words on the screen. Occasionally there will be some voice clips, but from my experience there wasn't too much. Now let's talk about the Wii version. This one actually has cutscenes, of course, which makes sense considering that the Wii is multiple times more powerful than the DS, but like I said, I'm comparing these based off of what the system could do, not which one's generally better. I think the Wii's cutscenes are pretty good, not necessarily the best of all considering Unleashed was put on the Wii 2 years before, and Black Knight 1 year before, and considering both those games have better graphics in their cutscenes despite being on the same console and being made before Sonic Colors, and the opening cutscene of Sonic Colors on the Wii generally being better quality than the actual cutscenes. I think the cutscenes in Colors on the Wii are honestly kind of disappointing. The DS release could have done better as well, but since the opening scene was put right at the start of the game on the DS version, which is literally the same opening scene from the Wii version, but downgraded in quality, I personally think they could have done better, especially considering there's lots more games that are double the time longer, which means they use more storage. So there shouldn't really be a problem porting the cutscenes over for the DS version. But for all I know, the DS version could have been released before all the cutscenes were made, so I don't know. So I think, of course, the Wii version has better cutscenes. Yeah, general better cutscenes, I'm gonna say that too. And for the limits, yeah, they also have better cutscenes. Next, I will talk about the controls. So instead of starting with the DS version, I've decided to compare the two buttons at once in real time by pressing the button that does the same move at the same time with both games. I just want to say, I'm basing this off of the DS version being played on an emulator on a laptop, not a real DS. And I'm also basing this off of a Wii remote and a nunchuck. So now let's start. So the DS version only has basic jumping, while on the other hand, the Wii version has a double jump. So Wii's got a point ahead right now. And for dashing, I'd say the Wii version has it better as well. The dive button is mapped to the jump button in the DS version, so after you jump once, then press the jump button again, you're gonna dive. But the dash has its own button in itself. I've mapped it to the N button on the laptop I'm using for the video. While on the Wii version, the dash button is mapped to the B button, which is on the back top of the Wii remote, as well as the dive button. And the only button that doesn't do anything in Colors is the tiny C button on the nunchuck, well, besides the select button, but that's never really going to do any main movement kind of thing if you ask me. And if they decide to set either move to the C button, regardless, it would still be a stupid idea because the C button isn't a button you use often, it's small, and it's overall supposed to be out of the way, meaning you're not supposed to use it often. I said there's really no game that does it better. I personally think they're both equal, but I'll mention the DS version also has a spin dash while the Wii version doesn't. I think they had intended on the dash replacing the spin dash in the Wii version, but you had to get it charged up anyways. And well, yeah, the game is basically 3D. At the very least, the 2D sections or stages, since some stages are just entirely 2D, they could have just let you spin dash for those stages at the very least. And if you press the Z button on the nunchuck, then Sonic will crouch down. They could have just had you crouch and then press A to spin dash for the Wii version, but no, they decided to cut that out, so whatever. So the Wii version and the DS version both have 1 point for this dumb point system I decided to use currently. So now let's just end off this topic with, I guess you could say, the drop dash. In the DS version, you just have to jump, then hold down, then press the jump button again. But in the Wii version, you have to jump and press Z on the nunchuck, which I forgot to mention this earlier. But the Z button is basically the nunchuck's R button kind of thing, I guess you would say. I think let's top all the DS version drop dash is better. So overall, I would say that the DS version's controls are better. And I also want to add that when running in a straight line in the Wii version, it'll make you tilt Sonic slightly to the left or the right side, which when I've said slightly, that makes it sound like a deal that doesn't matter. Oh, trust me bro, it honestly does matter. So let's just continue on. Next, I'm going to talk about the engine, and if you don't understand what I mean by engine, it's how the game is played. Like how the Wii version is 3D and the DS version is 2D. DS game's engine is the same engine that's used in the Sonic Rush games. The Wii version's engine is entirely new, but I think it's the closest to Unleash's engine, but just way, way better. In the game's level design, which I'll of course get into in a bit, then most of the time wasn't really a time where I thought that I died because of the engine. The DS version didn't really have me falling like that simply because it's just a 2D engine. 3D has you moving in more than 2 to 4 directions, so a 3D engine is going to feel like Betrayal whenever you're playing normally, and then the engine decides to mess you up for no reason. This played so much till before, when I said that in Colors, whether you're moving the joystick or the D-pad, etc., Sonic can be moving slightly to the left or to the right side, even when just moving in a straight line. In my experience, it was more common for him to move to the right. I think the DS version doesn't really have any change or flaws because, like I said, it's a simple 2 to 4 moving direction game. I think the Colors on the Wii has a better engine, and I think those small flaws about the DS version, like the one I just talked about, can easily be excused. So let's just get straight into the next topic without an intro. I'm just going to talk about the level design next. First this time, I'm going to start talking about the Wii version. So the Wii version, obviously, for the most part, is a 3D game. I say for the most part because there were some 2D sections here, and sometimes even levels that are just entirely 2D. But the 2D levels entirely just tend to be shorter most of the time, if not all the time, really. Every single zone offers a new addition to the game. Some being simple, just adding like a new look to the stage, water, cake, etc. The use of the wisps in the stages, in my opinion, are not really that good. Yeah, sure, some of them multiple times where using the wisps can be very beneficial, but there's multiple times where using them just feels pointless, for example. And also, some of the wisps I just don't like using, like the spike wisp, like that pink wisp, the spike. I honestly really hate using that one because though it'll make you attach to objects if you jump on them, the hitbox isn't big enough, so even when I do touch the wall sometimes, it still will not make you go onto it. There's also multiple sections in Astro Coaster where you're supposed to use that little purple wisp, but you're also not really required to use it, and since that's also a wisp that I didn't really like using in the game, I decided to just not use it at every single chance I got. For example, there's multiple sections in the game that don't even require the wisps as they intend, like I said just now. But it's not really much of a problem since the wisps aren't used for a long time anyways, but compared to them in the DS version, I would say the Wii version's level design is a whole lot better. Both games have the target lock, which is that red target that shows up over enemies and such. But now let's actually speak on the DS version, as I had said earlier. I'm a bigger fan of 3D games. The DS version, of course, is a full 2D game. And the game being on less powerful hardware than the Wii means it's not going to have occasional 3D sections, as was the opposite for the Wii version. The level design in this game is still really good though, but being on less powerful hardware, like I said, means there's more simplistic levels. The stages do still have some things that the Wii version doesn't have, like this section that acts as if it was a quick step section, but you still have to jump off of these water slides. We did see multiple quick step sections in the Wii version, but we didn't see any like this in the Wii version. But regardless of the DS version having good design, it's still not as good as the Wii versions. Now let's talk about my final topic, which is going to be bosses. Before I start the topic for real, I want to say that both games do repeat bosses, but add something new to the repeats to make them more interesting multiple times. But let's actually start now. And the only fair way I came up with comparing the bosses was to compare the bosses of each zone. So Tropical Resort's boss definitely is better on the DS version. The boss on the Wii version can be finished in 15 seconds. I'm not joking, I have done it myself. And that's mainly because it only takes 3 hits, and I don't have a problem with that in comparison to the DS version's bosses, at least. Wii version's way of traversing is a giant circle that you have to go around in every direction. And no, I don't have a problem with that either, of course. The fact that the DS version did the same thing but in a different way, I can't explain. But the Wii version's got a simple premise. Hit the boss that's in the middle 3 times. The boss is way too quick and it isn't really as good as the DS version. So now let's actually talk about the DS version. And it's not as easy, but still obviously, well, extremely easy, just not as easy, I guess. You'll have to hit the boss's hands multiple times, and for the final hit, this orange circle on top of its head. The boss of Sweet Mountain in the Wii versions got you hitting a lever, then you can start hitting the boss in a little arena. Then you hit him multiple times, and bam, he's done. However, in the DS version, you've got to use the burst wisp to go high up in the air. Then hit the boss and have him fall down, then beat him up. I'd have to say the DS version does this boss better as well. Now let's do Starlight Carnival's boss. You have to chase after a ship and hit it multiple times in the Wii version. Yeah, that's basically it. The DS version essentially does the same, but you have to knock back some junk. The ship will drop on you, and then after knocking back multiple pieces of junk, it'll start another segment. I personally would say that the Wii version would be better if it had you knock back some junk from the ship. But the Wii version's boss for Planet Wisp is a remake of the first boss with lasers and balls. Yeah. The DS version is also a remake of the first boss, but now has some drills that will chase you around. And you have to use the drill wisp to drill into the water that's on you to destroy these orbs that are allowing the boss to regain its health. I'm sure you can tell that I think the DS version is a better boss. So now let's go ahead to look at Aquarium Park, which has banger music, by the way. I'm gonna say that right now. The music for Aquarium Park is amazing. The DS version's boss is a remake of the second, which is the same for the Wii version as well. Now you've got to drop dash on the opposite side of the part of the boss's minions that are shot on. Then you'll knock him back at the boss, and then you've got your chance to hit him because he's gonna fall down. And then the Wii version's boss has you chasing after him in water. If you have the drill wisp equipped at the very least, I guess. But I do actually think the Wii version's boss is better for once. Astro Coaster on the Wii version's a remake of the ship from Starlight Carnival, but with more projectiles. The DS version basically does the same thing, but it adds a whole new section to it where you have to hang from this skinny bit of metal to avoid some lasers, and then you have to hit the ship, of course. And then with that being said, I'm gonna say the DS version's Astro Coaster boss is actually better. Now the DS version technically has 2 final bosses. The secret final boss where you're supersonic and you have to get all the Chaos Emeralds, and the regular final boss. I'm gonna call the secret final boss because it not only does it feel more like an actual final boss, it's generally better than the regular final boss. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and talk about the final boss of both games. Starting with the Wii one, it's personally my favorite of the 2. Okay, you see, it's fun to play. I can replay it without getting bored. And the Phase 2's music is freaking just incredible, bro. But on to the boss now. The boss is really good in my opinion, like I said. There's 3 main attacks that Eggman will use. The Cube Wisp, the Spike Wisp, and the Laser Wisp. The Cube Wisp will lay out lots of cubes. They'll put you in a quick step section. The Spike Wisp will have 3 spike balls at a time chasing you. And for the Laser Wisp, a laser will go across the surface and you're going to have to jump to avoid it. And then you have to target the robot multiple times and save the wisps. And after 1 full hit, you can dash at it and then get an extra hit, giving you another wisp. The boss's attacks kind of just repeat itself over and over by adding more challenging things to them, like the lasers and spike balls moving faster, for example. And for the final hit, you'll have to charge up all of the wisps you've encountered in the game, hit Eggman with the final blow, and then finish the boss. And let's go ahead and talk about the actual final boss. One thing this boss has over the Wii version is that you're supersonic. I've always loved being supersonic for the final fight, whether it's in Sonic 3, Sonic Adventure 2, or hell, even Sonic 06. I've always loved being supersonic for the final battle of the game. But honestly, hypersonic is definitely a better choice, but hyper is not known as much as supersonic, so I guess it's kind of a better choice, but objectively, no. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Forgot. The final boss of Colors DS. Alright, so now let's continue. Also, if you didn't hear me say this earlier, this boss that I'm talking about is a secret final boss. Okay, yeah, now let's actually start. So like I said already, you're supersonic in the boss, which I really like. Your first objective in the boss is to charge up your boost, holding, I believe, Y to knock back asteroids onto the boss's hands. After knocking 2 on its hands, you'll be centered in the second phase. Well, instead of knocking asteroids back at the boss, you have to avoid a crap ton of projectiles. There's some I want to call dark energy, and that'll either make you slower, which is what the purple ones do, or some red dark energy that'll just take you all the way back to the first phase of the boss. Or restart the second phase. I don't really remember, but I believe it takes you to the start of the second boss, but I don't know. and do it 2 or 3 more times, I don't remember, and then the boss is done. I decided to replay both these bosses. In my opinion, the Wii version's final boss is better than the DS version's. It's more fun to play, the attacks are better, etc. And that's the end of the video. So before I sign off, I want to answer this question people have asked me multiple times. Which version of Sonic Colors should I get? I'd say that if you have a Wii or Wii U, and obviously a Wii remote and sensor bar, then get the original game. I based this off of the original and had a really fun time. I'd recommend playing the DS version as well. You're easily able to play it for free on an emulator on your PC or mobile, etc. I would also say that the Wii version is better since I didn't really make that clear basically. I'd say that if you have the original console, get the original instead of Ultimate since Ultimate's going through some insane bugs like deleting all of your save data, unspeedable and incredibly bad glitches on the Switch version, and many others. That's at least until the glitches get patched. Or if they do. And with that said, peace out.